Hi guys, it's Dr. Gibson again and welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about why you are what you eat. We're going to be discussing the human gut microbiome, what it is, what it does, and why disruption in the gut microbiome has such a big impact on our health. Why is the human gut microbiome at the root cause of many of our chronic disease processes? And then we'll take a look at how we can repair and promote a healthy and diverse gut microbiome. So what is the human gut microbiome? So the gut microbiome is made of trillions of bacteria, protozoa, viruses, and fungi that inhabit our gastrointestinal tract. And so this is a major interface with the environment. We actually take food and physically put it into our bodies, and it's in contact with our mucosal lining. So each human basically has its own individual gut microbiota that act like a fingerprint. And this has developed over time based on our genetic ancestry. And when we talked about previously how our genes affected the way we metabolize food, this is the primary reason for it. We've all developed different gut microbiota depending on the foods we were exposed to in the past in our environment. So what is a healthy gut microbiota? A healthy gut microbiota is one that is really diverse. It has a lot of different organisms that work in symbiosis with the host. What does this mean? It means it's a mutually beneficial relationship. They help us and we help them. So what is a healthy gut microbiome? A healthy gut microbiome is one that's really rich with diverse organisms that can metabolize a lot of different types of foods. And interestingly, guys, we spoke a lot about vegetarian diets and how impactful they are on health. But truthfully, the most diverse gut microbiota have been found in eclectic omnivores. So these are people who eat both plant and animal products. Of course, they eat a wide diversity of plant products, but they also eat animal products. So it's a mainly plant-based diet, but it just goes to tell us that there's just so much that we don't know about diet, and truly that a lot of it has to be individualized for each person. So for those of you who eat meat, don't lose faith. So what exactly does a healthy gut microbiota do? So we are learning so much, and actually day after day there are numerous scientific articles about the role of a healthy gut microbiota. There are certain things that we do know for sure. Number one, they produce short chain fatty acids, and these include stuff like butyrate and lactic acid, and are important for the inflammatory response, meaning they decrease inflammation in the host body and help to maintain healthy cells in the host body. They actually help to reduce toxin exposure and fight against pathologic bacteria. Also, the gut microbiome is responsible for producing a lot of the vitamins in our body. So they produce B12 and folate, niacin, pyridoxine, vitamin K2. So they play a central role in the production of vitamins. They also help with mineral absorption, such as calcium and magnesium. And perhaps the most interesting point to this whole gut microbiota, I think, is how it influences the health of our brain. So interestingly, it's been found that the gut microbiota actually secretes dopamine and norepinephrine and produces 95% of the happy molecules, so our serotonin. And we know that serotonin is the targeted therapy for a lot of the drugs that we use to help to treat depression and anxiety. So this is really tells us a lot about how complicated the role of the gut microbiome is in the functioning of the whole human being. So what are prebiotics? Prebiotics are the indigestible portion of food. So they actually bypass the stomach acid and make it to the intestines and colon, where our gut microbiota can utilize it to produce healthy metabolic effects. So what exactly does this mean? This means that prebiotics actually feed and nourish our gut microbiome. Where do we get prebiotics from? So we talked about fiber, and so there are multiple types of prebiotics. Certain foods have really high amounts of prebiotics, and this would include raw garlic, onions, leeks, artichokes, but we can find prebiotics in just about every fiber-rich food. There's also a compound called polyphenols, and we've also heard a lot about polyphenols, and these have been packaged as well. But when we think about polyphenols in food, we're thinking about the blue, red, brightly colored fruits, such as berries and pomegranate. And you can imagine that some fruits and vegetables contain, of course, both the fiber-rich component as well as the polyphenols. So we get sort of a dual effect and dual nourishment for our gut microbiome. So let's move along from the prebiotics to the probiotics. And these actually work together to help to maintain a healthy gut microbiome. So what are probiotics? So probiotics are actually fermented foods that already have healthy microbiomes that can actually be placed directly into our gut. So basically things like kimchi, tempeh, kombucha, apple cider vinegar, these are substances that are already fermented and have the bacteria necessary to maintain healthy gut in them already. So how I think about probiotics and prebiotics is sort of like the probiotics are the plants and the prebiotics is kind of like that rich soil. So even if you take a lot of probiotics, if you don't have the prebiotics, that is the fiber and all that stuff that these organisms feed on and utilize to produce the healthy substances in our body, the system won't work, meaning our gut microbiome will not be healthy. I really have to be a little nerdy at this point and make a reference to a small study that was done that was published in Cell in August of 2021, where they did different interventions for different groups of people. So one group basically got fermented foods and one group got a diet rich in vegetables. And they actually found that there was decreased inflammation in the group that got the fermented foods and sort of like a mixed bag in the group that got the mainly vegetarian-based diet. And this is kind of surprising because we talked about over and over how important vegetables and fruits and fiber, how important it was for our health. But here is a situation where we have different groups of people having different response to a vegetable-based diet. So the question is, how do we interpret this? Do some people really just do better not being on a high vegetable diet? The way I look at it is this, okay? So we live in an industrialized society where a lot of our food is processed. So we have food that have emulsifiers and colorings, glycophosphate, tons of chemicals that basically kill off our gut microbiome. In addition to this, we have basically made ourselves more and more sterile. We use hand sanitizer all the time, we wash our hands all the time. And while this is important to prevent the transmission of communicable disease such as COVID, we actually haven't been exposed to the bacteria that we've lived with and grown up with for hundreds and thousands of years. So basically our kids don't get exposed to that regular dirt bacteria that doesn't cause disease, but possibly is healthy for our gut microbiome. So a lot of us have unhealthy gut microbiome, and so we can't digest a lot of the foods that may be good for us. And if we don't have this gut microbiome that we need to digest the foods, then how can we actually benefit from those foods? And that's why it seems that the group that got the fermented foods that actually had the bacteria in them already did better, because they needed that bacteria to actually get the beneficial effects of the food. It's really fascinated how many disease processes are associated with an unhealthy gut microbiota. And this ranges from diseases that affect our nervous system to autoimmune disease. So disease processes such as autism, ADHD, chronic diseases such as diabetes, obesity, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, autoimmune disease, and certain skin conditions. It just tells us about what an important role the gut microbiome plays in how our bodies actually maintain homeostasis. So truly, an unhealthy gut microbiome is the root cause of so many disease processes in our bodies. We do know that genes play a role, but truthfully, genes play a limited role. We have a lot of control over how healthy our bodies can be. And a lot of this can be achieved through our diet. A healthy gut microbiome has such significant beneficial effects on our bodies, to include increased cognition, increased memory. We have decreased risk of colorectal cancer, irritable bowel syndrome, decreased risk of autoimmune disease, decreased risk of Crohn's disease, and the list goes on, and we keep discovering more associations between the gut microbiota and disease. So let's try to translate this all into healthy ways for us to maintain a good gut microbiome. So we know a good microbiome is diverse, number one. We know that fiber equals fuel, but we have to have some amount of organisms present in order to utilize the fiber. So first step, if you have difficulty digesting beans and vegetables, get some probiotics. So we are talking about the natural probiotics. So our kimchi, or miso, kombucha, tempeh, and everything's available on YouTube. If you guys want to learn how to make kombucha, it's easy to do. We make kombucha at home, and a variety of kombucha, and it's absolutely delicious, and the whole family loves it. The second step would be to ensure that we have a fiber-rich diet. So if we have healthy gut microbiota present and we've been eating healthy and not a lot of processed foods, keep doing that. Keep eating a lot of fiber-rich foods and increase the variety. If you have mainly been eating processed foods, start by introducing the fermented foods and adding small amounts of fruits and vegetables. Remember, if you are not used to eating this way, it's going to be difficult because there could be a lot of bloating and a lot of diarrhea if you try to introduce these types of food too rapidly in your diet. So build up slowly, and eventually you will reach where you need to be in terms of having all the healthy components in your diet. So let's check off on all the things that help to maintain a healthy gut microbiome. Number one, fiber. Fiber equals fuel. Number two, probiotics. So these are fermented foods, and don't forget your milk-based fermented foods if you are able to tolerate dairy, such as your kefir and your yogurt. And don't forget too that you can learn to produce these at home and make them affordable to you. Good sleep is also important. Decreasing stress, also important. Losing weight, all of these help to facilitate a healthy gut microbiome. And things to avoid would include sugar and processed foods, which have a lot of chemicals and glycophosphates and emulsifiers and colorings, which can definitely destroy our gut microbiome. Also, only take antibiotics when you need it. A lot of times people want antibiotics for viral infections, and truthfully, they're only indicated for bacterial infections and only in certain circumstances. And next, I'd like to just point out that we're finding so much other types of things that might influence our gut microbiome. There was a recent study at the end of last year that showed that polypharmacy, meaning taking a lot of medications, can affect our gut microbiome adversely, and this excludes antibiotics. So the literature keeps changing, and basically what we have to focus on is getting a lot of good, healthy, natural foods in our diet. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you understand why we are truly what we eat. And if you have enjoyed what you heard, please like my video and subscribe below. Otherwise, just join me next week when we'll be talking about intermittent fasting. Until next time, bye.